Greetings. Today we're going to look at this, an Admiralty three-stranded service splice. So what is a splice? A splice is a method of making a permanent eye or join in a length of rope. So why would we use a splice instead of just tying a bowline, for instance? It mainly comes down to strength. With this splice, you lose something like 5 to 8% of the strength of the rope. Whereas if you were to use a bowline for the same purpose, you can lose anywhere from 40 to 50%. That is a big disadvantage and a loss of usable rope strength. It's down to a frictional shearing coherent. Bit technical, but basically that's what it's So to put one of these splices in is quite straightforward, but like with anything involved in rope work, a bit of practice goes a long way. Also with splicing, preparation is the key, but we'll discuss that later on when we learn how to tie it like this. Before we start splicing our three-stranded rope, we need to do some preparations. First of all, a whipping where you're going to start your splice. Secondly, cut the ends and pre-tape them so they're ready to go. Measure up the size of the eye you wish to make. Here we're going to make a short one, about a foot long. Marry your ropes up like that so they're together, you can see them quite clearly. Then take a one turn or one strand out of your turn like that. So you're taking a turn out of the rope as opposed to putting one in. The reason for doing this is when you actually start splicing, you'll find the rope will want to naturally twist. By doing that beforehand, you should have a nice flat level eye at the end of it. Once you've decided where your splice is going to go, open up your rope and put your Swedish fid in. So you've got a nice clear entry point. Unlay your rope and try not to take too many turns out of the strands. Bear in mind, if you are doing a large nylon rope or a larger polyester rope, you will need to probably marl down the strands to keep them nice and even. Feed your middle strand through and pull it into position. Keeping it nice and snug. The second strand, again, open up your rope and feed it into position. Check your lay is flat. Turn the rope over for putting in the final strand. As you'll notice, the strands I've already tucked, I'm pulling behind the Swedish fid to keep them nice and clear as to where they go and not adding any extra turns at this point. Once you've pulled this one into position, check all three are smoothly pulled down. Pull them back towards the splice to keep them nice and tight. Now you've started your splice, it's just a question of over one, under one to complete the sequence. With all natural fibre ropes and man-made fibre ropes these days, it's recommended you do 5 tucks. So here we come out there, we'll go over the top of this one and put in our second tuck. That is now 2 tucks completed. Three tucks completed. And that's 4 tucks completed. Final set of tucks going in now. Just pull them all in nice and tightly into position. There you'll see we now have 5 tucks and the eye still remains flat. Now, how do you finish the splice off? There are 3 ways of doing it. 2 I see as correct and 1 is not really that good, but a lot of people do it anyway. They just get a hot knife and cut these strand off there. However, the correct way of doing this is divide each of these 3 strands into approximately half. Once you've done that, get a length of tape, a couple inches long, and secure one of these halves off. You can then, with a sharp knife, separate those away. So you've got half the strands that side, half the strands that side. Do the same again on the next strand. And finally, on your 3rd strand. Notice I'm doing the left-handed side of each one, but that is just my preference. Doesn't matter if you do the right-hand side, as long as you remember which side goes where each time. So now, with all our strands separated, we're going to cross them over the 2 half strands, an actual strand of the rope, and we're going to dog the splice. What that means is we're going to put a constrictor knot as tight as we can against the center of the splicer. So here I've pre-waxed a bit of twine, tie a constrictor in it, in the middle, Once your constrictor's in place, slide it down nice and tightly onto your strand and pull it tight. Once that's nice and tight, all we're going to do is put a form of whipping on it. Go underneath yourself, come back, overhand knot. And we want to do 3 or 4 of these. Just doing 3 on this. Finish that off with a reef knot there on the top. And work your way back. Now, as you come back down the rope, this will allow you to get it really nice and tight. So the knot will pull it in even tighter. And again, just lock that off with a reef knot. You can then cut that to about 1/4 to 1/2 inch there at the end of that splice, and either melt it back or cut it with a hot knife or use a candle, just gently heat round it, and that will get that all nice and neat. The dog will stop any slippage in this splice. Not that there will actually be that much to start off with, but depending on the strain you're going to put on the end of your rope can affect how it actually works. This is just a safety measure. The other method I mentioned is tapering the splice. What you would actually do there, you would take 1/3 of the strands out from the base of the rope, do another tuck, take a final 1/3 out and do another tuck. So the actual cut strands are inside the rope at that point. You then put a serving, starting from the smallest area, up until it covers where the splices actually finish. So you're looking about 2 to 3 inches on rope this size, a very tight serving to keep those strands from coming out. That way, if this needed to go through a block or some sort of system that you didn't want the dogs to jam on, it's the other way of doing it that is also very successful. What I'll do now is I'll stop the tape and I'll finish off the dog in, and then we'll melt it back so you can see the finished article. Okay, I have now dogged all 3 of the tucks. As I say, you can either use a hot knife, which unfortunately I don't own, or just the old-fashioned way, just use a candle. But do remember, polyester, nylon, polypropylene, they do melt. And unfortunately, they melt and stay hot. So if you get a drop of molten plastic on you, it will go straight through your skin. And the only thing liable to stop it at that point is going to be bone. So do be careful. I'm going to preempt a question now. Why do I use waxed twine instead of using part of the rope itself? Main reason is cost. To make the strands long enough to be viable to tie them back, you're going to lose half a metre or so of rope each time you do it. So it's a lot easier just to use twine. Obviously, if your client wants that specifically, they have to pay for it. But for me personally, this is just as easy, just as effective. One of the good things about using an open flame like this is it actually melts around here, so it forms like a mushroom top on the rope, so there's no sharp edges. If you do it with a hot knife, you can end up with some sharp areas. And there we have the finished article. Obviously, do let it cool down before you grab a hold of it. But like with most things, a little bit of practice is all you need and you'll be producing professional quality splices. Just take your time, practice on an old bit of rope, get it right before you do something you want to actually use. Thank you very much and goodbye.